Hello, Virgo rising. I'm Britten LaRue, and this is Scopes Unshamed for August 2026. How are you doing? How are you doing? July was a big month. A lot was going on. We had a Mercury retrograde. We had some really big astrology. Maybe you heard about it. So, when we enter August, we will have just completed this big full moon in Aquarius. And, it may have been bringing up for you some things around like the limits of what you can accomplish in a day, like the limits of what your body can feasibly do. And it's really nice to have the context of me saying that because sometimes when we're in it, it can feel like something's just wrong with us. Like our bodies are just a problem. But when I say it to you this way, what I want you to hear me say is that it's coming up for you to see where you can give your body and your limits some compassion for the fact of limits being a part of human life. We actually have 24 hours in a day. We actually do have to sleep. We actually do, like, there's always sort of more that we want to attend to than it can feel like we can get to. So I would say that, you're coming off that. You got a lot of information for yourself there with that one. And now we're continuing to move through Leo season and we're moving into eclipses. So July was really big, and August also has a lot of movement to it, as in, like, a lot of information is coming in. What do I mean by that? Information is like what's going on. It's the literal data of your life. When information is not really coming in, we just are kind of going through our days and weeks, and it's just like doo doo doo, usual stuff. When a lot of information's coming in, it's like there's data that's kind of interrupting the flow of our life, and it seems to like want something from us. So July had a lot of information. August has a lot of information. So these are times of change because we're having to take in data and like adjust, like what does it mean now that this information is here? So for Virgo rising, Leo, where the sun is moving through for the first two-thirds of the month, Leo is your 12th house. The 12th house is more of a behind the scenes space in our lives where we tend to our spiritual life, we tend to our imaginal world, we tend to our healing. We tend to like retreat and recuperate and restore ourselves. We have practices for that in the 12th house, or maybe we don't. And the 12th house season invites us to make time for that. You may be invited to make time to restore, to recover, to retreat, to tend to your heart, to tend to your spiritual life, to like really listen to the mystery guidance according to your own cosmology. And it's more can be really helpful in your 12th house season to be more contemplative and quiet because you're listening for guidance beyond yourself, or including like your own higher self. We sometimes call it your soul, your spirit. Something is talking to you a lot this month about what you need for your own restoration and healing, which will be good for your whole body system. So there's a lot of action in this part of your chart right now, really inviting you into it. So for some of you, that may look like you're feeling much more called into like a kind of awakening period with yourself. And for others, this may be a place that you set up home all the time, and you're invited to like go back home to this place, depending on the placements that you have, if you have 12th house placements or not. So, as the month goes forward, we then have a new moon in Leo at 20 degrees of Leo in your 12th house, this new moon. So that's when the sun and the moon come together. There's also going to be Jupiter there, and there's also going to be Mercury there. So it's a lot of energy in that house. And this new moon will be in eclipse. It's a solar eclipse. And we had eclipses here back in that time period around 2017. So you might even look back to like things that were coming up in Leo season. Remember, we had the Great American Eclipse. That's the same eclipse cycle. So thinking, feeling into what's coming up for you in your life. When we have eclipses, we enter a 2 week period, sometimes longer, but there's usually two eclipses and they're 2 weeks apart. In that 2 week period, we are usually like brought into contact with some kind of new information that we didn't have before. And this is very collective, but it can also be very personal and interpersonal. So there's a lot of high collective energy in this period when there's like something that comes into collective awareness, something happens that now we're all like in a collective energy around it. That can be something that you will notice will be coming up. But there's also can be stuff from our own lives that arrives. And the reason this is often uncomfortable is because it's like we can't unsee what we now see because what we're seeing is not really a new thing. It's just new to our consciousness. Almost always, the new information that comes in with the eclipses is something that was already there. We just like weren't talking about it. We weren't noticing it. We weren't putting our media attention on it. We ourselves, like, were not seeing the thing. It was already happening though. So it means that we have to come into an encounter often with like our principles, with our yes and our no. Like, what am I going to say? What am I going to do now that I'm aware that this is in fact happening? And so it can create a lot of urgency in our system, this kind of energy to like act or to do something. And this is precisely what I would say to not do. I would invite you to really look into this whole window of time as a time for retreat and for going inward and listening to your own inner wisdom, asking your spiritual guides, whatever that looks like for you, to help you, to guide you, to give you signs, to put earmuffs on from the collective energy and get away from it as much as you can. Like, have boundaries, decide exactly how much collective energy do I want in my space on a daily basis. I'm the only one that can like turn that off so I can take some space for myself so that I don't speak or make decisions from a place that is like wrapped up in collective energy and not from my own energy, my own wisdom, my own knowing. If you can do that, then you can slowly take the space to integrate, to listen, to then adapt, to shift, and then get into a course of action that acknowledges those shifts from a much more grounded, much more wise place, because ultimately this is going to be more liberating. This is going to be more in truth. And it wants the respect of the space to come into that knowing around action. Then, as the month continues, the sun will move into Virgo, and now you will be in a first house period of the year as Virgo rising. So, when the sun enters the sign of Virgo, you're now going to move from a 12th house period to a first house period. And I use a whole sign system where the sign takes up the entire house. Each sign takes up the entire house. So, from this perspective, then you're moving into a shift where you're kind of out of that behind the scenes healing space and you're going into what is also kind of an internal time where you're really reflecting on your direction. Like, who am I? Where am I going? What motivates my going? What do I want? How do I want to feel as I'm in my path? in my direction, knowing where I'm going, with at least a sense of the next wise step for me. So I do think the first house is also a time of a lot of listening because nobody can do our path for us. We're the only ones that can do our path. So we're often quite internal when the sun is moving through the first house because we're listening for like the redirection energy just starts to come in. Like you will just start to have data that is helping you see the redirections that need to be taken. And sometimes that can feel like, oh no, I wish I hadn't done that. I want to redirect. And that can feel like shameful or disappointing to realize that you want to make a change. But this is the time of year actually when it's really important to be tuned into updates and redirections for your pathway so that in the whole of the next year, you got yourself onto a path that feels like this is my path, this is for me, this is what motivates me, this is my desire. I'm seeing the direction, I'm into my compass, I know what I want. And then that final eclipse is going to be on the 28th. And it's going to be at 5 degrees of Pisces because it's a full moon. So the moon will be in the opposing sign of Pisces, which is your seventh house of interpersonal relationships. This is really an opportunity to fall back into the people who love you, the people you're most close to. Let them hold you. Let them see you. Let them see who you are now. Let them see who you're becoming. Let them feel you. Let them feel the you that you're emerging into at this time. Share with them who you are and notice how it feels to step out of a place of, I've got to do this myself, and into a place of, I can be supported. What it be like to know that I am the one in charge of my path and I'm not alone and I can be supportive. And there may be some emotionality about all of that. It's a Pisces moon, it's an eclipse. The emotions tend to be high, but it really is that time to sense how not separated you are actually from the ones that you love and like feel held and attuned to and seen and heard and appreciated by the ones who love you. I hope this was supportive. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe so you can get the September scope. Make sure to comment, like, share. All of those things are so helpful for me as I'm building this new project, Scopes Unshamed. If things resonated for you here, I'd love to just see some emojis or something about that in the comments. And wishing you a beautiful August. I will see you in September, Virgo rising. Cheers.